Okay. Dark chocolate. Wait, what? Dark chocolate and chili. Huh. Got any good chili tips? Favorites are my favorite meal. Sear the meat until its released moisture evaporates. Toast your spices and then stir in some dark chocolate. Whoa, that sounds interesting. I'm going to try and do another single defense. I just want to get the dual combos down. Wow. Thank you, Riddler, for the 5,000 bits, too. Dang, thank you. Well played. I tried. It's just, it's wave 40, man. It's brutal. I think it would have been fine on that one if I had gone maybe a different build. Let's probably go for longbow first. Frostbolts might be better, but we will see. Yeah, I think my chili is kind of maybe a little more conservative than most people's chili. Do we want to just go bleed them dry to start? Because I have nothing else on this line that I want. Yeah. So with my chili, what I do is I start with barley. And just like cup or two of barley. Cook that not until it's like actually soft, but you know, just soft enough. And then after it's kind of softened up a little bit, then I throw in tomatoes and beans. And the barley will then be soft enough to start absorbing the tomato and the bean juice, which imparts a lot more flavor, and then I just spice it to hell and back again. And then I don't actually really throw in much for meat, just because I don't do meat, really. Do we want to just do longbow? Yeah, we'll just do longbow. I don't have anything that gets me bleed anyway, so it's not really useful going for eviscerate. Particle cannon run. We'll have to see. I always prefer to pick what my my build is after I've seen how the map's shaken out a little bit. But I spice it to hell and back again, usually with like Cajun, obviously chili, curry even, like I don't even care. It doesn't really matter what goes into it, as long as it's got kind of that, like a nice savory tang. Oh yeah, bouillon. And then I just cook that for a while until the fluid's reduced dramatically, and then I have it with chips and cheese or sour cream. It's probably kind of heresy compared to some people's chili, but it's the best dang chili I've ever tasted, at least. Let's get ready for Wanderbots Wonder Broth. It's concerning. So on the whole like cooking show thing, it is not only like something I want to do, it's pretty much a surety. We just have to buy a damn house so we can actually use it as a stage. And so that's like the number one thing that we're going to be doing as soon as we've purchased the house, is actually setting up so we can do a cooking show. Yeah, barley sounds interesting. I'll give it a go. I like it a lot because it's kind of like rice, but it's got more of a chew to it, kind of like brown rice. But brown rice very much has its own flavor, and while you can flavor it, its intrinsic flavor is kind of competitive. Whereas I find barley has its own flavor, but very much is kind of complementary and will just, it absorbs flavor really well. And I would have never found out if it weren't for the grocery store just, I don't even remember what I had ordered. I think I had ordered textured vegetable protein and they just grabbed me barley instead. And I was just like, why? And then I started making chili with it anyway, because like what else was I going to do with it? I don't know. Because my chili is always just the like, oh, I've got an extra can of so-and-so I need to get rid of. I'll just toss that in. Unless it's fruit, and then I don't do that. I could try, but I feel like that'd be weird. But yeah, I just tossed it in instead of the textured vegetable protein because I was out, and then it was just like, wow, this is actually really good. I actually use ground dried barley as cat litter. This is quite abundant here in Saskatchewan. It's a fairly neutral woody scent. Huh. I mean, it makes sense. The local grocery stores around here sell barley milk. Chocolate barley milk. And it is so good. Peaches work well in chili. I'll have to mess with that. like I said, I want to do a cooking show, and I think that would be such a good opportunity for me to just mess around for a while and be like, today I'm going to be making chili. But what if we threw peaches in? Can I make this work? And just have it kind of be this odd duck thing where ideally I'd like it also to be kind of a vehicle for me approaching like my own health a little bit better and my weight. Because I've definitely gained a couple of pounds over the course of, you know, lockdown. So I still haven't left lockdown, to be honest. And so it'd be quite nice to actually cut down that... cut down on that a little bit. I'm impressed you pronounced Saskatchewan a little bit. Or properly. Saskatchewan? I try. It's not too far off of a number of, like, Minnesotan things. Because Minnesota has a lot of, like, kind of Canadian influence in there. Ish. So I'll send you Aussie ingredients. That'd be interesting. Ugh. Well, do we want to go for a Frostkeep build? But I've done Frostkeep. Let's just grab Kill 'em with Fire. I'll unlock something good at some point. What is this layout? Ugh. But it would certainly be interesting playing around with some ingredients from other countries. But it's still going to be quite some time before I mess around too much with these things. Just because I actually have to buy a house, and that's not easy. That's not easy. Yeah, Frostkeep got majorly buffed in this recent patch. Yeah, okay, we'll go for a Frostkeep run. Unless it doesn't show back up again. We'll see. Yeah, is there anything you haven't done by now? So I haven't won with obelisks, particle cannons, encampments, lookouts, or flamethrowers. I think those are all the ones I'm missing. And so I'm trying to get those first before I play around with anything else. Just because. But maybe I should anyway. I don't really know. It's always a question. Lifesteal, Shredder, Mortar. I don't know if this would be a good Mortar round. I think it'd be okay, but it's not looping enough. I guess I'm gonna grab the University. No, it's not even a good encampment run. Okay, let's just have these focus on most health. I noticed with a number of towers, progress often screws them up because they're constantly focusing on the thing at the very edge of their periphery, and I feel like they don't fire as much as a result. I could be wrong about it, but I think that's usually the case. Let's just have this on most armor for now. Let's see, sweet compliments a lot of savory dishes. That's why I don't understand why people get upset about fruit and dishes. I think it's a surprise. It's an incongruity that might throw a lot of people off, to be honest. Let's see. Frostkeep buff is a bunch of new cards, though. Yeah. I mean, I've already unlocked them. It's just a matter of, but I've already gotten a win with the Frostkeep. So while I could do Frostkeep again, I do want those achievements. Let's just keep having these focus on most armor and most health. And just kind of chip things down accordingly. Do we have any other good spots? Here would be good if I have the money. Yep. Most armor, most health. There we go. I'll just blink him down a bit. I would just send some Canadian maple syrup if you ever want. I'm hoping to actually be within driving distance of like Montreal and Quebec. Admittedly, I have no idea what the state of travel is nowadays. Like maybe things have opened up a little bit. I'm triple vax, so I don't have to worry too much about that kind of thing. And also there's kind of the boldness of like, do I feel like going out? Maybe. Yeah, it seems good for particle cannons. It definitely does. Especially if this loops back properly. I think I might do it, because this spot here would be primo for particle cannons. Just shelling things from a distance. Yeah, the convoy's making things hard. Yeah, I've been reading about that. I don't want to get into it too much, but it sounds... It always bugs me that authority figures are just so willing to put up with that kind of shitty behavior. But the moment anybody else with any other kind of grievances show up, it's like, hey, don't cut down these old growth trees. And it's like, no. I'm gonna beat you for that. And it's like, why? Let's see, heavy shafts or mana bolts? No, let's go for heavy shafts. Well, I gotta say, the level design here is good. I'm just gonna have them focused on this. We'll see. Yeah, I was really hoping to make it up to Vancouver while I was living in the Pacific Northwest. Because I've never been to Vancouver, and I've heard very good things about being up there. I've got a couple of friends in the area, but it looks like it's not going to be, like, full clear to travel before I'm gone. And at this point, yeah, I'm more focused on working, and, you know, prepping for the move. Because once again, I want to have enough footage so that, you know, when I'm on the road, I don't have to worry about my channel being stalled out for a while. I'll just have that on most health for a little bit. Why wouldn't encampments be good in this case? So the main reason why encampments are good is if you have a lot of double backs, where the more ground that an encampment covers, the faster it attacks. And so specifically, if I had a bunch of these, like, squiggles, so if it kept, like, squiggling back and forth really tightly, that's really good space for frost keeps and encampments. Yeah, it looks like... As far as going up to, like, Vancouver, Canada, and that kind of area, I will probably have to wait on that until I feel comfortable going back to PAX West or something. You know, go for a couple days at the convention, then drive north up to Canada just for funsies. Frost, I want scholarships, that's good, but we can wait on that. Frost bolts are going to work so much better. There we go. Look at this. Look at this level design, though. Okay, this would be a really good encampment spot now I'm thinking about it. Do I have... Oh, I do have the +3 range. Go figure, these things can just hit whatever. I really wish there were tower evolutions, though. Having played a little bit of Kingdom Rush recently, I think it would be so cool if the towers would level up, or rank up every, like, 25 levels or something like that. Because I really want to have a ballista that fires bolts like a machine gun or something. That'd be so satisfying. Okay. Most armor, most health. I'm just gonna have ballistas all over the place, chewing these things down. Because they're honestly some of the better weapons in this game. I probably should have had more of them on the last level. Probably have one for most shield, because we're gonna get Oogie. But I think that's fine. He's gonna show up around here-ish, but it's okay. Let's see. Should we put him here? Yeah. It's a good spot for it. Good-ish. Now, somebody was saying that towers... No. Somebody was angrily trying to tell me that towers passively gain EXP just by existing, and I think that is pretty false. There we go. Oh! He does show up on the last tile. Used to not do that, but I guess it's just a thing now. Alright. Let's see. Honestly, I'm just gonna let them do whatever. They're dead anyway. Sorry about that. Nightbot specifically has that name blacklisted so people wouldn't say it in my chat. And honestly, that kind of current event stuff very much should probably be left for like Discord or something where I can, well, I don't want to say I can more actively manage it, but I don't know. Real life stuff. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably noticed I let certain real life topics leak in a little bit more than they have been. In the past couple of years. It's been difficult keeping that stuff out. It was easier to ignore years ago. Nowadays, it's just like everywhere, and it's just like, I can't fully ignore it. I don't wanna, but you gotta. Otherwise, like, you make your life about it, and then you just end up being kind of mad all the time. Real life sucks. There are some good things about real life. I mean, earlier talking about Chile and whatnot. And it's like, one of the biggest things about real life that I've kind of really been enjoying is watching, as odd as it is, wow, we have nothing. Yeah, birds. We were outside bird watching for a little bit today, and that was real pleasant. But when I was younger, I always thought vegetarianism was just like this wild inconvenience, and you know, how could anybody manage to be vegetarian? And nowadays, you know, I've managed to pull off a mostly vegetarian diet. Not fully, but it's enough. And so, kind of a real life thing that I really like to do is just to go out to like a grocery store or restaurant and just see what kind of new vegetarian things. This is a really long path. I don't know how to feel about it. It feels like I should go saw blades, but I don't wanna. Birds, don't you mean watching the government drones? The fact that people legitimately think that birds aren't real is like the funniest shit ever, but also the saddest thing I've heard in a very long time. Let's see. I'm just gonna have a number of these focused on like most shields, and then actually buff them because shields are a problem. Like doing Satan tacos. You know, I couldn't get into Satan mostly just because it was more like bread, effectively. Wait, I thought it was a joke. Yeah, I thought so too, of Flat Earth, and then it turns out that very much, no. Like, the problem is all you need is somebody emphatic enough and a group of people, I don't want to say gullible enough, but you will absolutely run into people that will just legitimately go all in on the wildest shit. And they will just pay attention to it because critical thinking is not everybody's strong point. And yeah, it's more about group identity. Let's go for Jagged Heads. I'd like to go for some of the other ones, but having the bleed is actually pretty useful. That I think, especially in modern society, there is kind of this feeling of a lack of community. That a lot of people are fairly isolated, even in really dense areas. I know from my perspective, I live in a shoebox. Like, I live in a tiny shoebox, and I don't want to get to know my neighbors because almost every single one of them has done something to annoy me to a great degree. But also, I knew I was never going to be here permanently. And so it didn't seem like it was particularly necessary for me to put that effort in. Do we? Oh yeah, we do actually have more house spots that I wasn't even paying attention to. Ran out of money and some other stuff. But so, you know, you read about the good old days where you had much more, like, I want to say active communities. Where everybody knew their neighbor and you get together for block parties. I mean, even like my childhood in the 90s, in like Southern California, we knew who most of our neighbors were. And I was friends with like all of their kids, and my parents would sometimes get together with the other parents. Not always, some of the parents were snakes, but you know, there was still kind of that feeling of like, this was a community that I could be involved in. I feel like this is particle cannon time. I don't have enough money for a particle cannon, but it's fine. Back when you could ask your neighbor for sugar. Yeah, something like that. And, even if you want to know your neighbors, they might not be in the mindset of wanting to know their neighbors. And to some degree, like, I think there's also kind of that inherent fear of, like, even if you did get to know them, are they going to be somebody that you want to get to know? Because I've definitely met some people that I'm like, oh, you're cool, and then I see, you know, their discourse online, and I'm like, you're not cool. So I ran into an old friend from a couple years ago, and he was vehemently defending the idea of saying slurs as part of, like, just regular everyday conversation. And I'm like, oh, never mind. I wish I had never actually invested my time into learning who you are and, you know, invested in you as a person, because now it feels like it was a waste. And obviously that's not necessarily fully true, but there was still kind of that immediate regret feeling of like, ooh. Oh yes, gamer words. Yep, there we go. Let's see, do we want to go for the crit chance at this point? Yeah. And so, I know from my perspective that, like, I don't have a whole lot of time in my given day just because I'm doing all sorts of things, and I very much want to use my time very wisely on people and things that enrich me and make my life better and make me a happier person and stuff like that. I've never heard the term gamer words, but I instantly know what you mean. There was, oh gosh, I don't even remember who was trying to defend gamer words, but it was a very recent controversy where somebody was trying to defend using slurs as just gamer words, and it was just like, oh, ooh. And so, I've heard dating is just as bad, that you have to be on the lookout for a lot of red flags that just did not used to be there. And, you know, I'm super lucky that I found Shell and we pretty much sync up with everything as far as, like, opinions go, so I don't have to worry about it. But every once in a while, I, like, read about people trying to date nowadays, and it's just, you know, dodging weird problems left and right, and just, people are scary and complex. Never heard gamer words as a defense and wish it had stayed that way. Yeah. I remember back in the day when those were, where it was acceptable to do that, to use that kind of language, and I'm honestly very glad that they're on the way out. Let's see. Honestly, I'm just gonna focus these things on shield. Shielded enemies are the only thing I need to worry about in this game. Okay, and some armored enemies, but most of the enemies that I really need to concern myself with are the shielded ones. I'm sure we all remember the most popular person on YouTube and his gamer words. Dude freaking cost me like $5,000 because of that. Like, I am so just sick of larger creators with the ability to tank a platform temporarily. Level 20 first play. This is a great map. I hope it works out great. I really want to have a solid particle cannon run, and this seems like it might have the potential for it. I should probably have one on armor for a little while, at the very least. Wait, what? Oh, they killed ads for everyone? Yeah. So, have you guys ever heard of the adpocalypse for YouTube? It was, what, 5 years ago now? Which is wild. I think it was 5 years ago. It was either 2017 or it was 2018. I forget. It was effectively, I had just moved to Kansas, you know, finally on my own. And, do we want to grab bleed point? I'm not doing a whole lot of status effect damage to begin with. I could go for attenuation for the range. Let's go for the range. Let's see. Wow. It is fun watching them just go. And they're definitely a lot more mana efficient compared to, the obelisks, that's for sure. Oh, gosh, where was I going on this one? I've lost it. Oh, right. But, so... what was I gonna say? So PewDiePie was caught. Was he playing? I think he was playing PUBG, but he was using slurs as, you know, just kind of a pejorative. Is that the right word? I think it's pejorative. Pejorative, expressing contempt or disapproval. Not quite. Effectively, he was using it as a swear, and it more or less made the rounds on the internet. And what it did was it suddenly made a bunch of advertisers start rethinking things. And this is about the same time as one of the Paul brothers getting caught for the forest, and like a number of other things. A lot of advertisers freaked out because it's like, oh, what are our advertisements playing on? You know, what are these videos that are running our ads? Because they had no real sense of control over, yeah, what was being shown to whom, and so on and so forth. And there was kind of that sudden pullback where a bunch of advertisers wanted to. Oh, there was another thing. It was something British related that I think also had hit hard at the same time, and I don't remember what it was, unfortunately. We already have some bleed. Let's start heading for this one. Yeah. It was also the ISIS vids popping up on YouTube with Coke ads. That's what it was. And all of these things had happened just back to back to back to back to back. And advertisers flipped their shit justifiably. And suddenly we're like, hey, you need to fix this now, or we're not giving you, you know, we're no longer going to be running advertisements on YouTube. And there was just kind of this sudden drop, and I got hit by it kind of hard. I definitely went from being like, you know, boy, I might actually be able to like do YouTube as a living, to holy shit, I might have to look into getting a second job because I just moved out to Kansas and now rent is looking a little dicey. And there was just kind of that period of time where honestly every smaller creator on the platform was holding their breath to see, you know, whether or not they would remain financially solvent on the other side. And ultimately what actually happened was that like YouTube changed its whole system dramatically, and in my opinion it actually fixed it pretty well, to the point where advertisers are much more likely to let's just grab this one. Advertisers actually feel like they pay more now than they used to, which is quite nice. But there was still like, it was 3 or 4 months of just like absolute minimal ad rev and just uncertainty. Let's see. How are we doing? We're definitely nuking these guys down. I could probably use some more ballistas, especially considering how tight this area is. Let's see. I'm going to have my ballistas mostly aim for anything with armor, and I'm going to let my particle cannons just shred anything with shields. Let's see. So what is this ISIS ad thing about? Why did it play? So, effectively, YouTube for the longest time was kind of shit about managing the platform. Where, effectively, videos would go up, and unless somebody specifically reported them, they just wouldn't look for, you know, bad actors or anything like that. So, specifically, let's see, Twitch pronouns extension. Oh. I should actually look at that. I'm gonna grab that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to install it for a little while, but at least I'll remember that it's there. Anyway, so effectively they weren't very good at managing the platform, and so it was not uncommon for, honestly, ISIS to actually put videos on YouTube, and maybe they'd only last for like a little bit, but it was long enough for an ad or 3 to play, and that wasn't great. I mean, obviously, just them being on the platform was pretty freaking horrid, and they do not belong. But it, you know, it wasn't great that they had this level of, you know, access to something that everybody else has access to. You know, it's not difficult to stumble around on YouTube for a little while and then accidentally get, you know, a video of a beheading or something, and it's terrifying. Horrible. And back then, YouTube's policy was just to put ads on any video. You know, it was really easy to get monetization rights, and you could still run ads on your videos. And effectively, kind of in response to this, there was an immediate, you know, outcry like, hey, we need to change this. And so advertisers pulled money in advertisements, and then YouTube pulled all advertisements on videos from like untrusted channels. And that actually ended up being a good solution for the most part. Admittedly, it's a bit of a problem for anybody that is a smaller creator nowadays, because there is a you know, you have to wait until you have like 1,000 subscribers and 10,000 hours of watch time and some other stuff before anybody like can make ad rev off of YouTube videos. Let's see. Burn damage. Universities gain more research. More range. Let's just make my particle cannons be able to shoot everything. Sup, Oogie? But so, I think those videos still can make it onto the platform, but now they're scanned for and actively removed. And then even beyond that, ads won't play on them, which makes advertisers happy. Which means I don't have to worry about my, my livelihood just disappearing. There we go. Boy, Oogie just gets smoked. I guess he does spawn with a lot of shields, so it's not so bad. Okay, what do we do? Honestly, this area is a big loot back. I might as well have a couple of blisses all over the place. Just kind of focus on most health. Maybe a couple on most armor, too. Let's... anything else? Our mana is good. Is he dead? No. He got smoked while he had shields, and then they just didn't care about him. And unfortunately, the burn damage is not enough to... I mean, it's taking him out slow. Is it going to be the burn damage that kills him, or is something going to shoot him? Did it matter? Okay, more burn hit. Well, these are kind of all mediocre. I guess let's just do broadhead bolts. Okay, we got a couple of these guys getting a little closer. Let's, I'm just gonna have this do bleed damage. I'm gonna have this one just focus on progress. Whatever's in first. Yeah, keep turning for me. Let's see if I can find some, let's see if I can find some universities here. This is a nuts map, by the way. I adore it. It is just one long, squiggly mess. Would have actually been incredible for the frost keeps. Now that I'm thinking about it. But, it's fine. It's fine. What's this thing's range? Damn good. So if I put this up here, we'll be in a solid spot. Toast him, boy. Okay, let's have most shield, most health again. Once again, those are the things I'm most worried about. Everything else kind of doesn't really matter. Let's see. How we doing? Pretty good. I want to get my ballistas to be able to do every status effect for the cool trails, but beyond that, they're okay. We've got a lot of the vampires, and I will admit my defenses once you get back here are pretty bad. But honestly, maybe if I just have a bunch of particle cannons kind of plonked around here that are focused on progress, that should probably cook them the rest of the way. They're very expensive, though. We might want to just start upgrading all of my particle cannons. Maybe? They're expensive to upgrade, though. See, Trail of Blood, extra damage from all attacks for bleeding enemies. I mean, that's probably good. Let's grab that. Especially if we can get a Sanguinate. But I don't know if I'm going to go for crit on this one. Maybe I should. Okay. Just going to have a couple of these on most health and progress. What's this one on? Just progress and progress. Yeah, shoot whoever's in first. I'll do the trick. Do we still not have a university? Oh, man. I wonder if we get the Wander perk. I'd be happy if that turns out to be the case. Unless, of course, I don't win, at which point, I don't know. Mana's looking fine. Let's see. Do we get another one up here? I guess we do. We just have to wait. I mean, that's kind of the main issue. Why do the lightning bolts have shadows too? I don't know. Sorry. Nightbot hates caps. But at least I can read it. Yeah, let's just plunk these on every +3 as we go by. I don't think I want to level up my particle cannons just because it gets so dang expensive. Maybe I'd quit a little bit, but it just doesn't scale that fast. So I think I'd rather just have large quantities of them instead. I didn't know that before, good to know. I have a number of filters specifically on Twitch and YouTube, mostly to kind of protect me or the people around me. One of the biggest pieces of advice always is, do we want this or do we want to go for the poison? Because it could increase the rate of... Let's go for make them suffer, because I think that's a little bit more immediately valuable. Ooh, this is a good spot. Okay, let's just do most shield again, and then most health. One of the biggest pieces of advice for content creation on the internet in general, but community management, especially as a content creator, is that you very much want to make sure that you've kind of set your community up and your filters up to curate a healthy space for your own like mental and emotional health. And so for me, one of my biggest pet peeves in life is being yelled at. I cannot stand it. I just have never been able to tolerate anybody raising their voice at me for the most part. Because, you know, some amount of fleas and whatnot. But that as long as I'm in a position where, yeah, somebody is not just shouting at me, and so when somebody does all caps, at this point, you know, having been on the internet long enough, you really do just get kind of used to it. But, you know, if somebody decides they have a bone to pick with me and starts just going full in all caps at me because I've done something they consider to be wrong, is very, very quickly puts me in a bad headspace. And so, hilariously enough, even though it changes nothing, if I see that they get spam filtered beforehand so nobody else can see somebody yelling at me, then it inherently makes it feel better for me, so I don't have to worry about it. Because it kind of is like, it's like muffled. You know the shouting is still there, but it doesn't have the same impact because it got hit by that filter. If that makes sense. Let's grab a Sanguinate. We don't do a whole lot of crit at this point, but we might actually get by without the university upgrade here. Well, more of these. Let's see, most health in progress? Yeah, just nuke them all. Yeah, good to know. Never thought of it that way before. I think it's I think it also might be a somewhat, I don't want to say generational thing on the internet, but depending on when you start using the internet, there are different kind of cultural norms that you might pick up. And so, you know, when I was growing up on the internet, which, I mean, sounds weird, but I spent a lot of time on the internet. It was very okay to use, like, a lot of unkind language. And so for a lot of people in kind of my generation of internet users, there's kind of a normalization towards toxic language that really doesn't fly anymore. And so you might see a number of old internet users being like, well, I mean, the gamer words thing, for example. I do really like seeing all that lightning just flying. We might have to get a number of these pointed at progress and health, though, because these guys are getting a little far for my tastes. I guess I should probably just start upgrading a number of these base ballistas to do some more damage, because they don't do much. say I do enough, though. I think that's fine. How are we doing? There we go. And so, I knew a number of people that even were a couple years younger than me, or spent more of their time on one website versus another. And you end up actually picking up quite a number of different cultural norms that might be completely separate. Do I actually want to grab Jagged Heads? We do have the crit chance. Because Jagged Heads means more poison damage. Not more poison damage, more bleed damage, which means a sanguine. Hey, there's the universities. I was kind of hoping we wouldn't get the we would get the I wonder where they are thing, but whatever. What does the particle cannon range look like? Let's pick the tallest one of the entire damn map. The lower one's more or less the entire damn map. It's some good range. There we go. But so I had a friend in high school who, I don't remember what websites he usually spent his time on, but it was very much okay. The idea of caps lock is cruise control for cool literally was like the rule for this guy. And so for the normalization for him was that, yeah, if you're excited, if you're happy, or if you know something is rad, it's caps lock time. And that was just how he operated. Okay, I'm a little concerned about this because the missile guys are getting a little far and I can't stop them. It's your most health, your most health, your most armor again. Luckily we have this second section, but this is a little worrying. Because, yeah, unfortunately, these things are focused on other targets and aren't going to be hitting these suckers. Okay, let's just do what I can. Okay, now they are. They just needed to realize, like, oh, hey, these things can't be here. I think what I want is a number of particle cannons, maybe centered around here, that are just purely on progress, so they nuke whatever's in front. Maybe. These are all garbage. I could just go sorcery, but why? I could go haunted houses, which, I mean, it could be kind of nice money, but it would, yeah, okay, haunted houses, because what else am I going to do? You got any good, like, double house spots? I'll get a couple down. Not many. Anyway, just to finish the thought I was talking about, so there was very much this kind of feeling of it was okay to just, you know, shout about stuff when it came to, like, online discourse, and it was totally normal to just use all caps. But in the areas that I frequented, you would use all caps. Generally, yeah, if it was something really, really important, or if you were hella mad. And so I've always associated the two of them. Though, a number of these things might also just be a me thing. Like, I cannot stand uwu speech. For the most part, because I hear it in my head when I read it, and boy, it's just a little too saccharine for me. Do we save up for the next particle cannon? Do we make these better? Kind of. Let's see. They're definitely not quite making it as far. I've definitely got my defenses a little bit better focused. I'm trying to decide how much panic I need to have here. Let's do most armor and most health. give this a little bit more focus. There we go. Yeah, they're not making it through. Okay. I think there's still cause for concern, because it's very easy for this kind of run to get overwhelmed. But once they handle it, then it's a lot less problematic. Here, let's get another university down. So I want to get as much of that as I possibly can. And what do we do? More burn damage? Do we... I guess we do a decent amount of burn damage. We're not doing a whole lot of slow. Do we want to kill him with fire? Or do we want to go for the poison? Because this does bleed, burn, bleed. Oh, we don't actually have anything that's doing poison. Yeah, let's start working towards that if I get lucky. Okay. How we doing? I think the other thing is we probably want to make this longer. Because this singular lane is really dang long. And so it takes a while to get to, but these two are about the same length, so they're mixing. And we want to pace it out a little bit more. Okay. This is your... general level. I mean, these things are actually getting up pretty dang high. Let's see. Armor damage. There we go. The other thing I should maybe look into is fastest, but I'm not really trying to slow these guys down at this point so much as just kill them as fast as possible. Has Wander done double or triple lanes yet? Oh yeah, just not today. I'm trying to get my my dual win achievements, but they're hard to come by. Specifically, they're kind of difficult to get with the particle cannon. I like the particle cannon a fair bit, but it desperately needs like a chain lightning perk or something like that to make it really sing. Okay, you're just progress. And your goal is just to kill anything in front. Is pretty slow though. But it's doing enough. So it's not so bad. I keep getting my butt kicked on double. Wave 40 is a killer. Wave 40 is brutal. Like, I can be having an absolute banger run and then Wave 40 just shows up and says, never mind. And there's very little I can do about it. This map has a lot of potential to make it work, largely just due to the fact that it's so dang long with almost no splits. Because I think I've only had one split this entire run. Let's see, Seance for a little bit more money. Sure. The big problem is it's just a little late, but it's also not giving me another option, so sure, why not? Ooh, what do we got here? I think these are viable? No. I really, really hope they change the, change some of that stuff around a little bit. Let's see, do we have any other double spots? Not really. Oh, and I'm out of money. Well, let's start expanding this. Okay, how much are these worth? Bad. Oh, right, because they actually have to make, or gather some mana first, otherwise it doesn't count. Well. There we go. Luckily, I've seemingly got enough to just kind of pay for the whole thing. It is going to get a little expensive. Let's probably get a couple of mana banks before I do too much more. It'd be nice if they made the color just one darker or brighter for elevation. It would make it easier to see where they are. Yup. Yeah, I've been struggling with it a fair bit here. Not overwhelmingly, but I know it could be better. There's ways to still kind of figure out heights on this, but it's the inconvenience of it. Where was I? Ah, I was up here. Okay, is that about it for our haunted house business? Almost. There's like a little bit more I can surround. We know that one's no good. And honestly, if I miss things, then so be it. Alright, there we go. Maybe different colors entirely, for that matter. Yeah, I mean, you could have kind of like fall colors or something like that, so it starts like red on the ground, then goes orange to yellow or something. I feel like there's a lot of ways you can make the environment better. Another way would actually just be to have the walls a different color too. Well, yeah. There's a lot of ways you could do it, and like I could even pull up Photoshop and do a mock-up of how to texture it better. But I feel like trying to drive the point home that hard just ends up being more kind of rude. That's the thing. Colorblind mode is such a rare concept in video games, and I'm always surprised to see them in game. They're getting better. I feel like a lot of indie devs try very hard to be inclusive, and a lot of AAA developers just have the technology, so they might as well do it. Or, I mean, also they're just equally trying to be inclusive. I'm actually pretty surprised when a game, like, needs color blindness correction and then doesn't have it. At least for modern releases. Older games, oh yeah, absolute crapshoot. Okay. Let's do we grab slow but sure? I don't know, because I could also go for the research bonus, which is like 2% across the board. Nah, let's go for that. Oh, finally another split. There we go. Do I have enough for another particle cannon? Nah, but it's fine. I'm trying to think of games that had color correction modes that I can think of. I want to say Dying Light 2? Did they have it? I know Ruined King had a colorblind mode. I'm pretty sure Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is going to have one. I know Borderlands 3 had one, I think? The games like Celeste had them. I don't know. I'd love to look at it, because I know color blindness modes and accessibility options were just non-existent for a very long time. But I want to say a lot of that also had to do with the fact that for a while game development was very much kind of an insular single type group, generally aimed at an insular single type of person, and that's been changing fairly dramatically over the last couple of years. Probably just have this one on most armor and progress. Or, nope, looks like you just have to be on progress. Because it really is not prioritizing progress as much as I'd like it to be. We might also want to just get, like, ballistas on every street corner. I think at this point I'm not even going to tell them prioritization, because the enemies are getting pretty spread out to begin with. I think it's better that we just have them everywhere shooting. Thank you, Riddler, for the additional 5,000 bits. How to go pretend to work. I hope these help you some wander. Thanks for helping me procrastinate. No problem, and thanks so much. I will honestly probably spend that on moving. We've been trying to pick out pods for our move. Because I don't want to just hire a moving company, because I don't have enough stuff for a whole moving truck. And I also don't really trust standard moving companies at the moment. Because I keep hearing horror stories of about like people moving across the country and having like whatever moving company they hired just lose their stuff or take their stuff hostage and never deliver it. And like that is just like big fear for me. Do you want to just broadhead bolts? Sure. Let's grab this one. Oh, if we can get this to come back, that'll be good stuff. It sounds horrible. Yeah. And, like, from my perspective, losing my stuff would not be the end of the world. Because we're going to be driving in the car with all of the things that, like, we cannot, you know, we cannot bear to lose, if that makes sense. But there's a number of things that would be very difficult to replace. Like, my couch very much was a short supply, locally made thing that they don't make anymore, and I'd hate to lose it, because it's a nice couch that I haven't really gotten to use that much because it's stuck downstairs in the bad part of my house. And so, like, I don't wanna like run the risk of losing my stuff per se. And I realize, like, a pod is not necessarily better and is still, like, easy to lose and hold hostage. But when I was growing up, we moved not an uncommon number of times, and I remember we had a Papasan chair. It was the only one we'd ever found that was, like, good. And we really liked it because it was nice and comfortable to sit in. And they crushed the frame, and they used the pad as a packing material. When they, like, had shifted it out of the warehouse or something like that. So we got it back, and it was black with mold and dirt and grime and other things. And we never found another Papasan chair that was... Let's just get back to this. Michelle is having a hard time. Moving? Moving. Hey, moving is stressful and not very fun. It is, kind of. Like, it's nice to move to a new place, but... there's not a lot of... I don't want to say... There's a lot of kind of uncertainty when it comes to moving, at least from my perspective. Because were it any other time in my life, it would be pretty easy to just, like... hop on a plane, fly to wherever I want to go, and spend, like, a week or two house hunting or something like that. Wait, did the boss die? I didn't even see him. He got absolutely wrecked. A Sanguinate level 2? Or Eviscerate for the extra crit? Let's go for a Sanguinate 2. We don't have a whole lot of crit, and that's something I want to work on. All towers gain crit chance. I'd love to go for the Poison Bolts, but I want the crit instead. Let's see. Brought my first home back in November. Moved from South Carolina to North Carolina. It was such a pain in the bum. Wow. That's not even that far. My current plan, our current plan, is to... Hey, actually, we want quality over quantity at this point. Because we want the extra crit. There we go. Our current plan is hopefully to... Oof. There we go. I'm just going to leave this on progress for a little while. Our current plan is to move back in with my parents. And, just stay with them for a little while. As kind of a... Oh, I don't want to say, like, kind of a temporary holding zone. Because the main problem is I don't want to rush buying a house. Because for me, a house is not just kind of like a place to go home and rest at the end of every day. I literally almost never leave my house, and so it's kind of like, if I don't get a good house, I'm screwed. So when we first moved to Portland area, there's definitely a feeling of just, how would I put it? I picked wrong. I picked a bad house. Because we were really sick of living in Kansas at the time. The landlords had poisoned us by effectively spraying a bunch of aerosols in the apartment below us, and then dumping the fumes into our apartment without telling us. So we just woke up with, like, terrible migraines, and we just had to go. And so I hopped on a plane, flew to Portland, found a rental place, and it was not a good house. And so when we then, a couple weeks later, drove here, moved in, we realized the place had black mold, ants, was very poorly balanced temperature-wise, and there were planes that just flew overhead every couple of minutes, and it was really loud. It was just an absolute, like, just terrible messed up house that I just hadn't noticed because it was the first time I'd ever, you know, picked out a house or anything like that. And so I picked wrong. And luckily I was able to more or less be like, yo, this house is not actually, you know, what I, you know, this isn't the house that I thought I was getting. And I'm not going to say that they misrepresented it, but like one of the things I remembered specifically was that they had all the windows open. When I had first like gone to see it. Let's see. Do I want to just do most health in front? Yeah. And then let's grab Ballista's gain poison damage. Just so we can spread that around a little bit. And like it wasn't actually that terrible, and like maybe we could have made it work, but it was very clearly like I had goofed at picking the place and could have done far better than I had. And so from my perspective, I just can you go after the landlord for that? Probably not. Like maybe, but most likely no. That they would have had to been like outright fraudulent for that to be anything. And the best that I could have done was broken the lease without paying a fee, and it just wasn't worth the effort from my perspective, because I just wanted to move into a good place and not try and fight anybody in court over, you know, a couple $100. I guess it was just shy of $1,000, which like that is a lot of money for a lot of people, but from my perspective I just needed to get a good place and start working. And with that kind of thing, it would have very much been a toss-up on whether or not I could get the money back. And so I was willing to just take it as a somewhat expensive lesson and then be much more careful about picking a place in the future. Probably do most shield again, because we're getting up to wave 40, and that means we're going to have a lot of shielded folks that need to get nuked down. But so this time around, I absolutely do not want to even... I don't want to say I don't want to look at a place, but like, I want to make sure that I know the town. I want to make sure I know the area. I want to make sure the house, like I've seen the house in, you know, morning, day, and night, possibly even midnight, to hear if like somebody lets their dog out in the middle of the night to howl at the moon. Because we actually have a neighbor here that thought that was okay for a while. That it was like, yeah, we're just going to stick our dog outside at 2 in the morning. And it would just howl relentlessly. And they just weren't there? I was never clear on, like, what the, what their thought process was. Nor, you know, why they would do it at 2 a.m. But the dog would be out there from, like, 2 to 4 just howling. Probably not at the moon. I think it would just wanted to go inside because it was cold and sad. And so eventually, you know, animal control was called, and then they stopped doing it. Or is it animal control or is it the HOA? Sadly, the HOA has more teeth around here than animal control does, but eh. Let's see. Burning damage. There we go. When you're looking at houses, check out the area at night too. Some places seem fine during the day, but are sketchy at night. Oh, absolutely. Let's see. The fact that America has HOAs will never not be baffling to me. It kind of varies for a lot of reasons. As a person who has been kind of reliant on having an HOA, there are a lot of reasons why you kind of want one. Namely, the fact that a lot of Americans kind of try to get away with a lot of bad behavior and expect to get away with it and need somebody of a higher authority to tell them hell no, for them to not do whatever they're doing. And so the idea of having an HOA to say, hey, you can't just store 7 rusting cars in your front lawn, because ultimately what that's going to do is drive down property values for everybody else. And having an HOA that has some teeth where they can, you know, start charging fees effectively for somebody doing that. You know, it's not necessarily a fun situation to be in, but you can't always expect your neighbors to react in the most reasonable manner. And so having a I'm going to say kind of like a very localized, I don't want to say government structure, but it kind of is, but having that as kind of a backup can be really good. It can also be very bad because oftentimes HOAs tend to attract some of the more aggressively controlling people. People effectively that wish they were in middle management or are in middle management and want to carry their work into, I guess, out of work is the easiest way I can put it. Let's see, do I want to go seance? At this point, nah. We just want more ballistas. We want more ballista damage. And so there's a lot of reasons why it could be quite negative. One of the nice things is, because it's so small and localized, if somebody does turn into a tin pot dictator, then all you have to do is just rally enough of the neighbors to shut them down and potentially depose them, and then, you know, then they're out. Then you can take over or something like that. Like, it's not as bad as, like, on a larger scale. I know my town, back in Massachusetts, we had our, like, local representative lived in the town, and the dude had been working as the representative for 20-something years and did nothing. Like, actively, more or less was just there for his own interests and to line his own pockets. But because he had the name recognition and kind of the good old boy reputation, and nobody hated him, he didn't really get ousted until a guy that I ended up doing volunteer work for, canvassing and whatnot. Effectively, this guy was just so sick of this guy not doing anything, finally ousted him. But it took, like, multiple years of campaigning just to get this guy out, as opposed to just a bunch of disgruntled neighbors. And so it's like, I don't know if HOAs are good, but I feel like they're sometimes a necessary evil because the alternative is not great. Because I know from my perspective, one of the issues that I ran into when I was in Kansas, one of the reasons why we had to go, was there was I guess an HOA wouldn't have fixed this necessarily, but there was a industrial facility on the other side of the fence from where my apartment was. And that the industrial facility was like a printing facility or something like that. I forget exactly what it was, but a year into us living there, Shell went away for like a week and I was there by myself, and they did a bunch of work renovating the place. And all I remember is that she came back and, like, almost over the course of that week, the noise just got worse and worse and worse. And even over the next year and a half that we were there, it was just this just endless. It was over half a year. But it was just this, it was awful. It was not fun. And it was just downright unpleasant to be subjected to. And it was 24/7. Like, it was quieter on... Was it the weekends that I think it was quiet on? But only a little bit. I lived in Kansas. Me and my friends often joked it was like living in a post-industrial wasteland. It sometimes was like that. But so, we tried calling code enforcement saying like, hey, this level of noise is not okay. And we eventually got a couple of people to kind of agree with us, but then also say, yeah, but we can't do anything about it because this facility was here first, even though the noise was new. And it was this kind of just aggravating. Right. Also, the printing facility had, like, insisted that they were working on doing a fix, but they never did anything. But it was just this kind of agonizing situation of we needed somebody to be our advocate for us. Because we alone could not get anybody of any authority, let alone the printing place itself, to actually do anything. Oh, this is wave 40. Let's see if I actually pull this off. I might. I think I have enough ballistas that I might be able to chunk them down. I remember reading about small-town America and how there's large chunks of the country that are basically run like private fiefdoms by folks who are effectively elected for life via good old boy status. Yup. Yeah, there's, gosh. I mean, there's a couple of them. I know there's parts of, like, Washington and Northern California where most people don't leave and you don't get new people. And so you really do end up with kind of the same people running the show for generations, even. And if any of them are, well, I guess if any of them are bad actors, you're just kind of stuck with them because half the time they're kind of defended by all of their buddies in such a way that it's impossible to get anybody to act, and they're often also tied to like local law enforcement and some other things, and it's messy, and that there's this kind of a I don't want to say a trend to just kind of let them do whatever. Oof. I think we're okay, but it's damn close. If we can beat wave 40, I think we'll be fine. We definitely need some more ballistas. I'm just gonna kind of point these here. But I don't know why this was... no, I think this probably was just as much of a problem back in the old days. I think it just was easier to rebel if there was a problem. But I find this is especially true of like a lot of the smallest towns that I've been to or around, that the less mobility people have, the less ability they have to see others' perspectives in general. And so when, gosh, what do we want to do? Just fire damage or trail of blood for more bleed? Let's go with kill it with fire. Let's just increase the dots a bit. But so in a number of these like really insulated towns, it's not always the case, but in a lot of cases, because nobody ever leaves, you really end up with quite a number of people that remain intensely closed-minded and aggressively so. And because it's more kind of about who you know and what you know, it really does have that kind of, I'd hate to say like a Salem witch trial feel to it. But, gosh, was it a... That was a couple weeks ago I was talking about how my mother got kicked out of the church that we went to specifically because she dared to say no to my best friend's little brother for carrying a knife around. And, like, you really could tell that, like, within that smaller, tight-knit community, it was suddenly just, like, instant cold. And that, as far as I know, none of those people probably ever left. They probably remained there having their petty little squabbles for probably the rest of their lives. And that just kind of was normal for them. And so for stuff like the printing facilities and so many of these other things, that it kind of turns you from wanting to fix things in your community to trying to almost aggressively keep things the same. Because the alternative is having to change stuff, and that's hard. I don't know. This is very much something that I feel like I shouldn't be talking about too much while I'm playing just this game, but it's always stuck in my head. I think it's kind of the same thing with, I'd even say like a lot of internet communities, or just communities in general. If it's like too tight-knit for too long, or if somebody ends up with too much power, they end up just going mad with it. But it might also just be kind of, I don't want to say confirmation bias. Yeah, change is scary because then you're forced to admit you were wrong about something. I love being wrong about stuff because it means I've learned and grown. I've learned about it and like grown as a person, kind of. There are a number of things that I like don't change about, but like, I don't know, I brag about going vegetarian a little bit as kind of like my major personal change thing, and I don't think it's actually like, I haven't committed to it that well, but it's very much like opens the doors to whole new culinary ideas for me. And that nothing is more exciting than to find out that you are wrong or mistaken about something. Like chili. Freaking chili. I always thought chili was bad. I thought meatloaf was bad. I thought meatballs were terrible. And turns out, no, I just had a bad experience with like a couple of those and then just closed my brain off to the idea and alternative to, hey, maybe meatloaf and meatballs are actually like really good. Have you ever considered that, Wander? And it's like, no. But now that I have considered it, it's like, oh, now I want more meatloaf. I specifically had a fallout with a friend group a long time ago because I'd asked them to change a little bit, and they did not take to that particularly well at all. I think that's always been stuck in my head a little bit of like the idea of being so aggressively set in your ways that you will burn a whole friendship for it, or just screw somebody else over for it. I was hanging out. I think I was having one of those, like, you know when you're in the shower and you're just kind of thinking, your brain's just like, hey, remember this horrible thing that happened to you? It happens to me not actually that frequently, but every once in a while it does. So the random other kind of thing, and I've definitely talked about this before. Meatloaf. They meat looking like a bread brick. Kind of. I mean, you effectively put it in a casserole, and it does kind of have like a loafy look to it, but if you do it well, it's great. I guess an easier way to say it would be to call it like a meat casserole, but it's different. I don't know what the differences are actually. Like, what is the fundamental thing that makes up a casserole? Anyway, I was gonna talk a little bit about the stupid frat that I was part of in college. And it was a frat specifically for programmers and whatnot. And mostly nerdy people, mostly programmers. There were a couple of people that weren't. There was an animation major, there was a math major, there was me as an illustration major. And for the most part, everybody was like totally okay with the idea of people that weren't in computer science being part of this frat group, as long as, you know, you were part of the community and it was nice and inclusive and whatever. But there were a couple of like really diehard people that could not accept the idea of anybody other than computer science or engineering majors being part of this organization. So I ended up getting kicked off because those people ended up pursuing the like leadership within the organization, and at the end of the year you would vote on like if people could kind of, oh, there was a +3 right here that I just missed. But you like at the end of every year, everybody would vote like who gets to stay in the actual like physical location. And so I had been slotted to be in there, and then they were just like, no, you don't belong in here because you're an artist and we don't think your contributions are worth it. And it was just very much like, oh, okay. Let's see. Did I set this to least armor? There we go. Yeah, good riddance, I guess. It screwed me over for a while, and it definitely gave me some trust issues. But, like, the wildest part is always with these guys that, like, many of them were the ones that would argue, it's so damn hard about graphics in video games, and, like, you know, peak, oh, there's slow but sure. Took it long enough. But, you know, the people that would be like, you know, a game's not worth it unless it's, like, bleeding edge graphics or something like that. And then, you know, who makes that, but whatever. And yeah, their loss, absolutely. And I hate to be spiteful, but usually these were the people that were the most unhappy from that group. Like I remember one, the guy that had like spearheaded, it was really weird because he had like spearheaded getting me kicked off to some degree. Because I'd gone to him for advice and he gave me advice and then used that against me because reasons. But I remember he had opened up to me at one point talking about just how shit his life was. And like in the aftermath of it, I just realized like, no, his life is shit because he was just a bad person. And it was kind of validating and also kind of tragic because I knew that like he was never going to change, or maybe he was going to change, but too late to actually, you know, reap the benefits of changing. I feel like I should follow up on these people at some point. Because every once in a while I see like their picture go by on Facebook because they're in somebody else's albums, and I'm always like, I don't know. Maybe they actually did turn out better for it, or just managed to have a happy life regardless. And I'm just the one that wasn't flexible enough to maintain friendships with these people. But, eh. I get to say I'm part of the Wholesomeverse. What do they got? A job with Google? Actually, probably yes. A number of them did end up working for Google, and I have no idea how that is. A couple of years ago, it seemed like it was a sweet dream job, but every time I hear about kind of the background culture for that company, it seems like it's deteriorating a little bit. Oh god. Not in the same vein, but I was reading about Ubisoft and Team 17 and a couple other companies that have like really thrown their lot in behind NFTs and stuff. And I don't know if you guys had seen, but like Team 17 had been making had been like trying to push NFTs for a little bit. Was it last week? I don't know, my sense of time is gone. But they were trying really hard to push it for like a day. And the backlash was so strong and severe that they backtracked within a day and said, never mind, we're not doing it. Wizards of the Coast? Really? Why? I guess it makes sense. Magic cards and greed. But, I was just reading kind of dismally about Ubisoft handing out NFTs to their employees as some kind of thank you thing. It's gotta be the most insulting thing to work for one of these companies. I'm actually mildly concerned. I think I saw a headline go by that YouTube was looking into maybe NFTizing clips on the platform, which is like terrifying. There's Creeping Cough. Took it long enough. Maybe more reason not to like Wizards of the Coast. I really want to get back into tabletop board games, but I think I might still do D&D regardless if they don't get too hard into it. I definitely want to get into some other ones like Lancer, the smaller people. I think there's even whole videos unsure, just heard about it. I certainly hope they have the wherewithal to not. I mean, the nice thing to know is that YouTube, with all of these things, is... YouTube. Google really is the real answer. Google is kind of pathetic, and they've managed to make something that works really well, or a couple of platforms that work really well. But that almost everything that they do ends up like Google Plus. Yeah, keep in mind that Magic the Gathering's CCG model is specifically created as a way to get people to pay over and over for stuff they don't want. Unsurprisingly, Wizards of the Coast is kind of scum. Oh, absolutely. There was kind of like a wholesome level of things, but I definitely know they've done a number of kind of iffy things, like hiring people for diversity and then more or less silencing them immediately by giving them meaningless roles or just removing their contributions. And I think that was mostly an edge case for one guy, but it could be more than that. And it's just like, there's enough of a weird bad smell that I always kind of look at that company like, I can't tell if you're good or if you're just trying to look good. But like, Google is weird. They have the money and reach to succeed in almost anything, yet they fail and drop things so quickly. It's because they have no follow through, because it's not worth it for them. It's kind of this weird risk aversion where they're not interested in supporting any of their products beyond just a surface level, unless it manages to get a foothold and then they go all in. But almost always somebody else is more competitive and pushing in that space. And because, you know, Google is so safe, they don't need to do anything else. But there are so many products that they have created that they just give up on. And like, I think Stadia, didn't they just like kind of confirm that they're phasing out Stadia entirely? And just that, you know, that could have been a product that actually worked, but they never bothered to listen to anybody. And this was an issue specifically with Google Plus. Like, there's an interview with a Google engineer that got effectively phased out for whatever reason or another, but he was talking about the Google push for Google Plus, where they effectively, somebody kind of upper management said, we're going to push Google Plus. Any Google product that can have a Google Plus integration gets all these bonuses and extra cash and support and whatnot. Let's see. Oh, this is actually working shockingly well. I mean, the real answer is just having a bunch of ballistas to clear. Let's see. Antimatter? Sure. Oh, they're not doing poison damage. Well, it's fine. We don't need Creeping Cough that much anyway. But, so they pushed it so hard without ever understanding, like, what Google Plus was? Or why, you know, why anybody would want to use Google Plus. All they knew is that they wanted to compete with Facebook, and they had a product on their hands that could maybe do it. But, like, every single person that was making the decisions didn't really understand how or why. And they were just pushing it because that just was the new orders from above. Regardless of logic or sense or, you know, good business practices. And so they push, and then they realize that they're not getting anywhere just by pushing it. And because the people in charge don't understand anything beyond that, they just give up. It's not worth it anymore. Yeah, they pushed Google Plus stupidly hard before there was anything worth pushing. But the time it became decent, most people had soured on it. Because, like, if there were to have slowly grown Google Plus over the last, you know, couple years, it's like, hey, this is like an alternative to Facebook, but actually we're not going to be pushing controversies in front of you. It's just you, your social contacts, maybe a little bit of LinkedIn mixed in for some job stuff. But, you know, none of this Facebook trying to get you to engage by being angry about stuff. If they had done that, then they could have just come out, you know, recently and been like, hey, Google Plus, look at us. We're not hateful and evil. And look at our, you know, spokesperson. They don't look like a weird plastic mannequin man that literally thinks he's Julius Caesar. And, like, they could have done it. Like, that's the wild part. They could have actually succeeded. But they didn't. They didn't bother. And it's like, it blows my mind, and I'm sure ultimately what they did was probably the better business decision. In the long run for them, maybe, but I think the better business decision just wouldn't have to engage. I really wanted Google Glass to succeed. I always wanted a head-mounted display. It'd be cool to have, like a headset thing, or, you know, just like a little thing in my glasses that's like, hey, turn right up ahead, dummy. Like, that'd be great. I'd love that. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know, we're gonna have to wait a while before that actually happens. I'm sure there's other uses, but that's really the only thing I want. Navigation while looking down at a phone means I don't actually get to look at anything. It's a bit of a shame. But so for so many of this stuff, all they needed to do was just kind of stick with it for a little while longer. And wow, what a distribution on my universities. I put most of my money into shields, and then it just gave me an almost even mix of everything else. And the main issue is, again, investors have no patience for anything that doesn't instantly generate tons of money. Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it is because investors aren't interested in anything that lasts longer than X number of years, because there's no, like, push for investor loyalty. Many of them will just straight up just ditch within a couple of years anyway, just by nature. So if you try and tell them about your 10-year plan, you just get blank stares, because they literally are not invested in anything longer than 3 years or something like that. Well, that worked out great. So what was the king there? Damage over time effects, I think? Yeah. Who needs towers? Just damage over time. The particle cannon definitely beat out, but that's just because I wasn't applying a whole lot of poison. Yeah. No, just damage over time effects really were just king. So I want to take a look at this. House protection. So definitely, oh, house protection, as in these houses. Death tax. Vaguely worth it. 9,000 for... How many of these did I build? 4, 8... 14... 23, 26... 32, 37, about 40. So they about doubled the investment that I put into them. Honestly, no, I don't think haunted houses are worth it. I admittedly only got 1 point into Seance. But yeah, I don't think death taxes are really that great. I did get them kind of late too. And yeah, I didn't get enough upgrades. But ultimately, if I made this amount of money from everything else, even if I had gotten it sooner, at most it would have only matched house protection, which is something I don't have to invest perks into. Whereas conversely, to get death taxes to be good, you have to invest in death taxes not only monetarily, but upgrade-wise, and you have to do it early. Which is a really tight spot to be in. I don't know. It just means don't invest in it unless you have nothing better to do. Do you think this game would be improved by adding on on-road traps like Gemcraft? I think that would be interesting. I think it would be fun to mess with. I don't know if it would be good. But I think there's a number of kind of major overhaul things that could make a lot of Rogue Tower quite spicy. I think traps would be good. The reason why it works so well with Gemcraft though is because every tower placed in a ground trap still had some kind of, or every gem had a viability, even when put into a trap. Where conversely, in Rogue Tower, you'd have to have a separate tower that exists there, which is kind of what the encampments are, but not really. I'd like to see a bunch of different things. Would be interesting to see banditry separate from regular monster income. Yeah. I actually would agree with that one. I think that would be neat to see too. What was I gonna say? Oh right, with this whole Google gives up early thing, just kind of in regards to that, even if they do get into NFTs or whatever, I just get the feeling they'll give up after a couple of, like, they'll do an immediate push and everybody's gonna be mad about it, then nobody's gonna invest in it, and then they're just gonna, like, go quiet about it forever, and then eventually quietly stop doing it. I still hope they don't do it because it's gross, but that's entirely what they would do.